I'd like to open the hearing. It's March 28th at 6:02 p.m. of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Conecuh-Hassett. Sitting as the Zoning Board of Appeals are Woody Chidick. Aye.
Ed McMorris, aye.
Okay.
Lee Darst, aye.
3,
Michael Dickey, aye.
4.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Good. 5. And Charlie is. We also have invited guests, but I'm sure you'll want to chime in at the appropriate moments. So it's not a large group. So at any rate, we do have, I think it's 6 articles to think about. The bylaw working group would like to, or the zoning bylaw committee, sorry, would like to get our endorsement, if at all possible, of all the articles going to town meeting. So Cassandra, what order should we take them in? The order that you sent them, or the numerical order, starting with 1 and 13 and moving forward? I mean, what's the best?
I guess that would make the most logical sense, but if you wanted to do certain ones at the beginning or at the end, there's no
Dave, what do you think?
order.
It seems to me to make more sense to go in order, because some of the later ones may relate to earlier ones.
Oh, right. We've been doing like the 3 easy ones and the 3 ones that
Okay,
we've
yeah,
received-
let's do the
that
3.
we've received
All
any
right.
comments on. You might have comments on what I consider the easy ones, but I haven't heard any to date from anyone. So
All right, I'm fine with that.
Okay, well, the first article is the merging of 1 and 13, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
We've had a chance to look at these. I'm trying to call it up. Where am I? I don't. Nope, that's not it. Let me get out of this one. You have, Cassandra, is there some way that we could do a
Yeah,
screen
well-
share here?
Yep,
Let me
I'm
see.
working on that.
yeah, here I have it. I have it. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Tom, why don't you give us just an absolute thumbnail on
Yeah, I
the
mean,
merger? Is there anything that doesn't jump out at us?
no, there's really nothing here of substance. You know, it's cleaning it up, taking out superfluous material. 13, the principles of 13 are merged into this, so 13 will be deleted. The substantive change is to add these 3 that are in the middle of the page, the 3 additional purposes for the bylaw. And during the course of discussions with the planning board, it originally said housing opportunities, it now says housing options. But everything else is pretty straightforward. This is truly a housekeeping one more than anything else.
Can I ask a question, Tom? In reviewing special permit applications, are these issues that we will need to make findings on? Or is this simply a auditory article?
In terms of what the purposes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we already have A through F. I don't think those are things you specifically necessarily have to refer to in a special permit and make a finding about. It's just the general reasons why the bylaw exists.
Okay.
So every board that's dealt with it so far has supported this article unanimously.
Yeah, I didn't see anything here. I think Charlie might have a question on another section of 12 in terms of our responsibilities, but not this one. Hearing any other questions on this merger? If not, I think we could take a vote to approve, well, to endorse. I guess that would be the proper to endorse this article.
Is that a motion? I'll second
Yes,
it.
I'd make a motion, sorry.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Otherwise, Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Charlie is here.
Charlie did join us too, but it looks like he's muted at the moment.
Charlie, can you unmute?
Can you give a thumbs up if, or thumbs down if not?
But you're against the merger of 1 and 13?
Oh, I think he's saying you can't unmute.
Oh, he can't
Charlie, give a
unmute?
thumbs up or a thumbs down for your vote.
All right, well, this is
Okay.
a little bit significant here. Charlie, you can't unmute, and tell us why. I mean, Cassandra, he's muted himself in his computer. It's not anything we're doing centrally.
No, and I don't have the ability to unmute people.
Can you, as the host, Cassandra, like on the top right, like ask him to unmute?
Yeah, but it doesn't unmute him.
Is there any way he could type in the chat or something to express it that way, maybe? Is there a,
I don't think there's a,
Call
chat,
in on
maybe.
his cell phone or call to, I don't know.
You better use the landline.
Yeah, use a landline and
Ginevra, can you unmute Charlie?
I think he has it.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
And I
There he
vote,
is.
oh,
Okay, Charlie, now, you voted against, at
yeah,
least tentatively. Can you explain why?
because I think it's asking us to do some things that we aren't responsible for, like the color of the house and things like that.
No, this is the merger of 13, which is a brief one, as I recollect, and the purpose of this board. You're talking probably about Article 12.4, or at least Section 12, where it talks special permits, right? That's
Especially,
not what we're voting on.
then I don't have that article in front of me at the moment, so I will abstain.
Okay, we may circle back, but looks like a 5-0-1 on this one. Okay, what's next up in the box?
Article 3, which is the hold on. This is the article regarding our districts. Again, this is mostly housekeeping here, just to where the echo is coming from, but setting out what our districts are, what our overlay districts are. We incorrectly had the cluster bylaw as an overlay district. It's not. We are referring to the various components of the map. Right now, there's multiple components since the map hasn't been updated in a while. That will be updated, of course, after we go through the fall and then any further changes to this article. But these are really this is just housekeeping.
Yeah, I know that you had earlier, your group had talked about doing away with all the fine cuts along the highway. Why do we need a technology business district as well as a light industry and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Is that still in the?
Yeah, we're gonna, you recall from the working group, we discussed consolidation of the zoning in the harbor because there's a mixed
Yeah.
bag of things, and And likewise, with 3A, we may, and I'm just saying may, it's an idea that's out there, but it had, we haven't discussed it in detail. And of course, we have to deal with the MBTA housing overlay that we're gonna have to bring in, so.
Let me just
Yeah.
ask a question. Why are we dealing with this now and not later if we think we'll have further refinements or compression or rationalization?
Because it needed some housekeeping, that's why. Judge, if you'd like to explain the thinking behind it. Again, you have to remember that the overall point of this step in doing, we're not doing the whole bylaw in one step. It's unfortunate, but everybody decided it was too much to chew, so we're doing it in steps. And this first step with these 6 articles is largely housekeeping and setting the base for the changes that may come in the future.
If I could, if I could just interrupt. So the job before us currently was not to do a major rezoning in the town. It was to take what was there and make it the best that we could without making major substantive changes. With the thinking being that over time, the bylaw has been changed with numerous amendments. And as a result, it's become a little unwieldy in places, and there are a lot of inconsistencies and outdated provisions. Our job this time around was to clean it up and make it a good base so that as we proceed with the more complicated zoning changes, we have this to turn back to. So we know how it's organized, we know how to fit in a new change. So if, for example, we were to take the light industry and the technology business and combine them together, it's a very simple adjustment on the map, and it's a very simple adjustment in this bylaw to do that. But we don't know if that's going to be done or not, or how it's going to be done. So the idea is, rather than waiting for the absolute perfect of everything, to make it as best as we can as a good base to proceed to the more complex changes for the future.
Is there another page to this amendment? Or is this it?
It should be, there should be more. Okay, so this section 3.2 now describes the zoning map as consisting actually of 4 different maps at present, because not all of the boundaries of the various districts are shown on the colorful zoning map that you're all used to seeing. Somehow they didn't get on there. So the TOD boundaries are described in the warrant article for the town meeting that created the TOD in reference to assessor's map numbers. So we put that in there, the description, and the boundaries of the GMSP are shown on 2 sort of sketch maps that were submitted to town meeting, but those boundaries were never actually shown on the overall zoning district map. Nevertheless, under state law, the zoning bylaw has to show its districts on a map. So we did the best that we could. The town doesn't have a town engineer at present, and we didn't have the ability to get a brand new zoning map showing all of these up to date at this point. And as you mentioned, if the town is going to make some adjustments to the current districts in the future, that would be the time to adopt a whole new map. And we would simply substitute the new map and take out the references to 2, 3, and 4, rather 1 to 3 and 4, and combine it into 1 with the new date. Number 2, the boundaries of the floodplain district is a very special case, and that is a whole book and series of elevations rather than a line drawn on a map. So, so those boundaries are distinct. Nevertheless, all of these combined are comprise the town zoning map. And so that's how we defined it for this time around.
Okay.
The interpretation of the district boundaries is basically the same with some, editorial corrections and refinements, but nothing substantive is changed. What we were going to change the datum of the elevation that's used, but I don't think we ever did that. I think on page
The
3.
elevation from 1928.
Yeah, we were going to change that, and I don't know why we never
I think
found the exact-
1988, which is old enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
it's really
page
too old,
3.
is the most recent we have, but I'm not sure.
If we can get to page 3, I think is where it is.
I believe we had changed it to 1982 after the first public hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there's a typo there, the 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yes,
you
okay,
got
that
five,
two needs to
five.
come out, yes.
I have
yeah.
that corrected on
Okay,
the one that
good.
I sent Tracy.
Great,
Okay,
great.
great. The last F is a change from what currently occurs now. This situation that is addressed in the bylaw at present does allow a district, if you have a district boundary dividing a lot, it allows the use regulations from either district to go into the other portion of the lot up to 50 feet or 200 feet with the zoning board of appeals special permit. The thing that is changed is under the current bylaw, if you are extending the use regulations from District 1 into District 2, you don't have to meet all of your lot width and lot depth requirements on the District 1 portion of the lot. You can use the entire lot to meet that width and depth. So that's the only change that we've made.
You okay?
Yeah, it's been working fine. Well, I couldn't unmute us, but the host did that finally.
No, you're still live, Charlie. But at any rate, comments or questions, inquiries from the part of the board. I mean, this again, I think is not very dramatic.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, Woody.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, anybody have any issues or
Well,
confusion?
I would like to ask Tom, what are the quote, mostly unquote, and quote, largely unquote, items that are covered by this?
I'm not sure I understand your question, John.
When you say this has no substantive changes, you say mostly and largely mostly, and I was curious as to what the exceptions are.
Well, we took out the reference to the cluster development bylaw as an overlay district. That was incorrect. We added the references to all of the various maps, the 4 maps that now make up the town zoning map. And as the judge just explained, there was a change made with respect to the district boundaries. And I mean, how you can allow a use from one district into another.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think this is clear enough. I'd like to make a motion to endorse proposed Article 3.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Higginson, aye.
Anybody else?
Michael Dickey, aye.
Okay,
Matt Watkins, aye.
and Lee Darst has a thumb up. Okay, so 6-0. Endorsing that one. Okay, so now we go to sign regulations.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so on the sign bylaw, the one significant change is down here in creating a height limit on freestanding signs, which we do not have at the moment. And then there are tweaks to the various definitions. The most significant one being regarding political and non-commercial signs to make sure we're in compliance with First Amendment requirements.
As a definition.
Yeah, so this is making some changes to the definitions that are in Article 2, but since they relate to Article 6, we're dealing with them in one article together.
And contrary to what I think you're trying to do or will be trying to do to the definitions section where we wanted to bring everything together, you've still got some definitions here in this article that are not yet or maybe never will be in section 2.
No, they are in Article 2. What we've done on the approach to definitions in this go-round is that if a definition is related to a specific article, like Article 6, we're doing the changes as part of that article. It's amending Article 6 as well. So it's a two-step process where we're changing the substance of Article 6, doing our housekeeping changes.
This right
And
here.
then and you see here, Part B of the motion is to amend Article 2 definitions as follows. We are still going to the principle of getting all the definitions in one place, but as you'll see when we get to Article 8, there's one exception to that. So if the judge wants to add anything about what we're doing here, I'll ask him to say that.
We, again, pretty much left the regulations as they are, but rewrote them and tried to make them clearer and reorganize them somewhat. So we now, and there is one additional change that says that signs erected and maintained by the town, the Commonwealth, or the federal government on any land, building, or structures in use by such entities are exempt from these sign regulations, from the regulations under this article. So this would allow, I mean, the Commonwealth and the federal government are already exempt. We can't regulate them, but the town would be exempted so that if it needs to put up whatever signs it needs to put up on public buildings and public projects, it can proceed without necessarily complying with all the various requirements of the sign regulations.
Okay, board, questions?
I'm grateful to have this thing cleaned up.
I'm grateful you're grateful.
Yeah, I'm certainly far from an expert, but I'm not going to object to any changes that are explained to me as to bring it in compliance with, the First Amendment.
Could you scroll down just so I could go by 6.2 and see what I understand 6.1 and 2. Signs permitted, signs prohibited. I get that. So you still have okay. Okay, other restrictions. That's a new section.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's existing text and principles that have been just moved around and
Yeah,
rewritten.
you mean from 5 and whatever and 4. And, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just don't want to see anything.
Okay. And like I
Alright.
said, so it has the warrant article and the motion has got an A and a B part to it. The A is the edits to Article 6 itself, and B is the edits to the definitions that impact Article 6.
Okay. Board, any questions on this one? I'd make a motion to endorse both Article 6 and 2 as presented tonight.
Second,
All right, Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Adenson, aye.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Matt Watkins, I.
Okay, 6-0. Next one.
Right, so this is the non-conforming article, Article 8. And again, this is the one we explained to you last week that this is going to be done in 2 separate votes, 2 parts. The first is to just edit and reform and reorganize Article 8, which you're seeing here. And this is the one exception where a definition that was in Article 2 is being moved into this article, abandonment.
Well, Tom, actually, if I could just interrupt on this one, we're not moving the definition, we're explaining when something is discontinued, becomes abandoned. When it was in the definition section, it appeared more as a regulation. So we basically took the abandonment regulations and moved them. There really is, it's not a specific called out as a definition, but it just explains the circumstances under which uses and structures become abandoned.
Okay, thank you for that. And then you'll see in Part B, which will be voted in conjunction with these edits above, in deference to Woody's comment last week, 8.10, which deals with temporary structures that was slated for deletion, is just going to be moved to where it's better suited in the end of section 4.3. So it'll become a new 4.3R. And then when we deal with Article 4 in the fall, we will deal with how we address temporary structures in more detail. So this will keep the provision of temporary structures in for the next 6 months until we further deal with Article 4. The second part of which will be the separate vote, will be to reform the Cohasset's version of the single lot exemption to bring in a cutoff date by which a lot has to be created in order to be able to take advantage of the exception. Yeah, Judge Cutler, unless there's anything to add, that's all I have to say.
Well, I have one issue with this.
Go ahead.
In 8.3B, I would strike everything after other than minimum required lot area.
8.3B. Okay, here we are.
David, what's your thinking there? If you wouldn't mind expounding on it, please.
Well, it says if you're not extending the non-conformity, that you don't need a special permit. But you need to come before the special permit granting authority to find out that you don't need a special permit. I think that's a waste of resources and a cumbersome way to do things. The way we do it now is when somebody goes to get a building permit, the building inspector looks at the plans and says, oh, you're expanding a non-conforming area, you got to go to the zoning board. Or he looks at the plans and there's no extension and he gives them a building permit. Seems to me a much more logical way to do that.
Well, you may have seen, you raised this by email today and
Did.
yeah, no, and the Judge and I had discussed it. Obviously, we haven't had a chance to discuss it with the bylaw committee, but I don't think it'll be a problem. If you're perfectly happy with relying on the building inspector to make that threshold question of whether there's an expansion, fine. You know, we'll be fine on going back with that. I just got to find the right.
Have pity on us. Some 64.5% of all homes in Cohasset are non-conforming, and every time somebody wants to do something that doesn't exacerbate the non-conformity, it would be a busy committee. I'll tell you, board. I'll tell you that. I think Dave makes sense. I mean, yeah,
that's
maybe
fine.
something
That's
slips
fine.
through, but chances are not.
It is John's job, the building inspector's job.
That's fine.
do that, so.
We don't have a problem with it, and the judge had suggested language that I circulated to David, apparently to an old address of Woody's that he didn't see. So we're prepared to make that change, and it'll mean the building inspector makes the first call on whether it's an expansion of the nonconformity or not. And then how somebody appeals that or challenges that is, is the way it's the way we're doing business today. So
Well,
that's
the way
that's-
somebody challenges it is the way the statute says, is he issues a building permit within 30 days, an aggrieved person files an appeal, then it comes to us and we look at it.
all right. Well, that's not a problem. So we'll make that change.
We'll make that change. So we can just we can simplify this much more and just simply say that the lawfully existing non-conforming single or two-family residential structure may be reconstructed, extended, or structurally altered without a special permit, so long as the reconstruction, extension, or structural alteration will not increase the non-conforming nature of the existing structure. And we'll leave it to the building inspector to make that determination. And if he finds that it is, the person can appeal to you. And if he finds it isn't, and he issues a building permit and someone is unhappy, they can appeal to you.
And so you've also dealt with the lot area other than the minimum lot area
Yeah,
because.
take that out. We're
Yeah.
gonna, yeah.
If there was a way I could show you the text, I would. But,
No, I follow. I mean, what do you think of that, Dave, as sort of a?
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too. I mean, it would be silly to have us deal with 2/3 of all building permits issued in the town.
all right. Well,
Okay.
that change will be made. Thank
Great.
you.
Right. Anybody else have tweaks? Now, is there anything else in section 8 here, Article 8, rather? That,
No. It's
troubles me.
pretty much as you see it. And again, it's following a principle of cleaning up, maybe moving things around into a logical order. And the first part is leaving our unique exception to the single lot exemption by alone. But the second part of the vote would change that to provide that cutoff date of June 30, 2023. And what that means is that any new lots created after that date are not going to be able to take advantage of the exception when they have a common ownership problem. Anybody who has rights today under our current bylaw will continue to have those rights after this amendment.
well, just a kind of two quick questions. The state statute says that if you have an old lot, a 5,000 square foot lot, not.
That would still apply. That would still
apply.
That would still apply, but you couldn't have it in common ownership.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And so because the common ownership thing triggers a larger lot size, but still
Correct.
substandard.
Yeah.
You're doing away with that.
No, we're not changing. Cohasset created larger minimum lot sizes for the use of that exception, and we're keeping that. We're just putting in a cutoff date. So if you have a common ownership problem, you have to still have certain minimum lot sizes that we created that are up here.
So the 9, 15 and
Yep,
20,000 square
the
foot
9,
lots still
15, and
apply?
20, yes, that will continue.
Okay, it's really a common ownership thing.
Yeah, it's cutting off the accrual of new rights in the future for the exception when you have a common ownership problem.
Yeah.
And it's not
You
changing.
still have a few years. If you have a common ownership, you're going to be protected for another 5 years. So, this doesn't kick in until way later.
Yeah.
I did want to point out something that you may find if you're comparing the existing with this and saying, where did this section go to? So there is a whole series of 3 or 4 paragraphs that describe what happens when somebody obtained a zoning freeze, not a nonconformity, but a freeze on the applicable zoning. We took that out. It was just restating state law relating to what happens with approved subdivision plans and endorsed A&R plans. And we didn't think it was necessary to have that additional language. in the bylaw. That is state law. It doesn't really deal with nonconformities in itself. It prevents nonconformities. So any of those lots that have freezes are conforming lots. So we took it out of here.
Okay, Dave, any issues?
Nope, none.
Thank you, Charlie.
No,
Okay, well, I would, and there's nothing, so this is it. It's just a reorder mostly.
Yep.
And a little cleanup of the common ownership, or at least eventual elimination of that, and so on and so forth. That's fine. This is the thing that we obviously, this is the section that probably occupies 60% of our meeting time every month. So it may only go a couple of pages, but it's chock-a-block full of nuance. Anyway, I would make a motion to, unless anybody else have questions or clarifications. All right, well, I'd make a motion to approve the proposed Article 8
With the change that we
with the
talked about.
change. Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Second, anybody? Don't be shy.
second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Higginson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Okay. Next up. Well, this is going to be,
All right, this is Article 12. Oh, wait a minute, let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. What am I sharing here? What do you see up on the screen?
Article
see.
12.
Article
You do?
12 and
you
related
do?
amendments to Article 2.
Okay, I don't know why I don't see it, but that's all right.
It's dated March 23.
Yeah, that's it should be the most recent thing.
All right.
Oh,
Okay,
there
who
it
wants
is.
to-
Oh, there it is. So
all right.
from the last time we spoke to you, and we were deleting section 4.2A, which was the adoption of the single use. The use
use,
variance,
special
the use
permit
variance,
versus
and the special
variance.
permit. We're not going to argue the legal points anymore. For 6 months, it can stay there. But that, as you can see, it's
I
been
just want
deleted. It's
the,
been deleted.
protection.
It was step B, so it's been deleted, and that's going to stay in until we are dealing with Article 4.
Okay,
Um,
that'd be
The
fine.
rest of it hasn't changed, and there's definition changes addressed in Article 2 that relate to this article. And,
There's a change in the site plan
the
compliance.
rest of the major substantive change has been in the site plan review process. And, I mentioned this to Woody earlier today, you had asked about the definition of board being moved. That's because we deal with the zoning board here. We explain what the zoning board is. We also have added a section to explain what the planning board does, which was lacking in the existing bylaws. So that's it. And if Judge, if you want, I don't know if anybody has questions about the site plan review changes, the judge can go through them, but kind of went through it last week.
No, I think, Dave, you probably have a question. I certainly have some stuff, and Charlie, I don't know I haven't talked to the rest of you, but I don't know who wants to go. Well, we should go at it in order, in numeric order here, rather than bounce around. My first issue is enforcement, but Dave, what's your issue is notification?
I mean, the issue with notification is in the general bylaws. It's not in here. And I sent an email to the selectmen asking them to pay attention to it.
Yeah, one select board member gave me that today, and it's kind of like trying to cobble together some changes to bylaw at the last minute, but the judge and I discussed this within the last, a little while ago, and it's like, we can do as a matter of, I asked her, the suggestion that Woody made to me was, can we have all building permits, when they're applied for, have there be notice to abutters like you do for a special permit? And we can do that. And I think possibly we can do that as a matter of policy. If we can't cobble together something quickly between now and I think next week would be the absolute deadline to get a general bylaw written. Why not as a matter of policy, we can do that. And then, the notice after the fact, about the denial and something in writing, that's, I'm going to get into Woody's point and about the Elio case that we distributed.
Well, why don't we take them in pieces? I mean, the first
Well,
one
I
is-
mean, yeah, I mean, if we, I would suggest that anybody here who, the general bylaw is outside our purview. I mean, but if anybody wants to write something quickly, in meeting with the select board tonight, I'll let them know it's coming. But I think if it can't be cobbled together quickly to do it, I think as a matter of policy, the building inspector could start notifying abutters of applications for building permits. And as I thought through that a little more, I think it should be limited to building permits dealing with exterior work. I don't think a neighbor's
Oh,
gonna care.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think a neighbor's gonna care if you're remodeling your basement, but.
Well, we have no authority over it. Zoning doesn't anyway.
Yeah, so, I think that can be dealt with in the short term. And then, come the fall, maybe we deal with it more substantively, maybe get it out of a general bylaw and put it in the zoning bylaw. I don't know, but,
I mean, my concern there is simply our bylaw says we're going to notify people of issuance of building permits by publishing in a newspaper.
Yeah.
We don't.
and we're violating that, yes.
We're
because-
violating.
Because technology has changed and we don't have a local newspaper anymore.
But if I'm in a butter and I don't like what's happened and I want to appeal 70 days past, and I say, well, I never got the bylaw prescribed notice. That's a real problem, and it's an easy problem to fix.
I mean, again, if you start with a notice requirement at the beginning when it's applied for, perhaps you write in that then.
Just
when a
change the
decision-
general
when-
bylaw, instead of saying published in a newspaper, say posted on the town website, which is what we do.
Okay.
Then you
Well,
solve
Yeah,
the
but then
immediate
somebody
problem.
brought up to me today that not everybody has access to a computer, so.
I know,
I-
but
I
you've
would-
solved, what I'm saying is you've solved the immediate problem. You've now made our notice at least legal. And then later, if you want to tweak the notice thing so people get easier ways of notice, that's fine. But I think right now, let's make it legal.
I would say one thing on this, when it comes to publishing public notice, even when it goes into a newspaper, excuse me, that gets corralled. So if you type in like publicnotices.com or anything like that, you can type in any town and it'll pull up all the public notices for that town. So I would say definitely potentially add it to the website for sure. But as far as some type of publishing in the paper, there's other parts of law that you still do it if you have probate, guardianships, things like that issued from the court that they publish. But those publishing in the newspaper, no matter which newspaper, it does get aggregated to a certain sense that again, it's not easy to find, but it's there.
David, I understand that, but the problem is we don't publish it in the newspaper. Our bylaw says we have to, but
Yeah.
we don't. We just post it on the website. So nobody's going to find it by looking for newspaper publication.
Yeah.
And we're violating our own bylaw. It just seems to me, fix this
All right,
quickly and then work on it later.
All right, well then, may I suggest, because I'm not looking on to take more workload than we have in these last couple of weeks before town meeting, is write it. I mean, if you want the support of the bylaw committee, sure, we'll support it, but write it. If it's that simple, let's just write it. If you're asking us to write it, it's outside our purview, or if it's that simple, it's simple, but
I think I can do that.
I know you can do it.
You got mousetrap, Dave, but that's all right.
I'm only going to change 2 words so I can handle that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
You
and
can
then
you can handle that.
And then I think, later on, we think about the concept of actual notice to abutters and which is, added mailing, well, it'll fall on the app, the person who's applying for the building permit, but we can do that according, is what I understand, so.
And Dave, the only other thing you'd have to include is when they post it to the website, right? Making sure that it has the posting date on the website. I think we kind of ran into that too, as far as there was a little bit of uncertainty as to when exactly the update went on to the website,
Mhm.
Is that solved for the moment?
Okay. All right. Well, I think it does, Dave. Is that, we're all set?
Yep.
Okay. Now, as many of you know, maybe not everybody, I got a real problem with the deletion of old section, what is it, 12.2, particularly B, C, and D, which requires, it's not optional, it requires the building inspector to render decisions in writing. And I think by removing that, there is no notice, and you can interpret, and actually the Elio case, you can go one of 2 ways. Toward the end, you can either say that, one of 3 ways, actually, that if there is no written decision, the building inspector has made a negative finding. You can see that later on when the discussion of zoning administrator, if that's different or not, but there it specifically says a no decision is a non-decision is a negative decision. This just says if there's no decision, and I noticed the Elio case ends with the statement that this person a year or so later still has every right to appeal a decision because no action has been taken. No negative action has been taken, no positive action has been taken.
Mhm.
And
So
but
nobody's prejudiced.
that's a sort of murky area. I like the wording that we presently have is say where written complaint is made, the building inspector shall take action. That's what chapter.
That is in the statute, Woody. He is required to take action.
Yeah, in
and-
section 7.
And yes, and that's a requirement. That's a requirement of his job to follow the statute.
And
If he,
and why don't we want to, I know it's a bit repetitive, but why don't we want to keep it in here? Because I think very few citizens even know what a chapter 40A is, let alone have access to it.
because even if it's in here, if we repeat the statutory requirement that any decision any refusal to take an enforcement action requires him to put it in writing and with his reasons. That is in the statute. But even if we were to add that language, if he doesn't do it, neither the statute nor the bylaw can force him to do it within a certain period of time. The statute, interestingly enough, says shall within 14 days. And the court has said, nah, that 14 days is really kind of directory, and it doesn't mean that if he doesn't do it, it's automatically constructively.
Yeah, you don't fall off a cliff at that point.
Exactly. So the problem that you have, and this is the problem with the statute and the way that the Supreme Judicial Court has interpreted that statute, is that there is no appealable event until and unless the building inspector issues something in writing. I think what they're saying in Elio is this person doesn't lose their rights of appeal. They just hang on and they have to wait to get a decision. Now, the question comes up, well, how do you push the issue? How, you can't leave somebody in limbo like that. And so I think there's the way to do that is to go through the appointing authority, and the person who doesn't get satisfaction from the building inspector after 1 or 2 times and just doesn't do it for whatever reason, can go to the appointing authority and say, please I need this response. Would you please ask the building inspector to do his job and issue me a response? I just want to point out, as a practical matter, not all quote enforcement requests turn out to be real enforcement requests. You know, there are situations where people are complaining, but they're not actually asking for any specific enforcement. And the
Yeah.
building inspector, you know, if he doesn't have time to investigate it and figure it out, he just kind of, okay, here's a complaint. Well, I don't see anything here, so I'm not responding. I got other things to do. So you can understand why some of these things don't get responded to. But you know, I think that the remedy is really just to ensure that the building inspector is aware that this is a job responsibility and that he needs to take it seriously. And if he doesn't have the staff and the support to take care of it all, well, that's something he's got to, you know, got to talk about. But I don't know of any building inspectors who purposely evade this kind of responsibility. I don't, have you had that issue?
Mm-hmm.
You have. Because the other thing, the other problem that we have is because that 14 days is directory and not mandatory. If it took, how long do you wait till someone gets to appeal? Like, do they wait 30 days? Do they wait 50 days? Do they wait, you know, like what is the, there is no trigger is what I'm saying. And that's the problem.
Right,
that
and
we
I
have.
think for the edification of the board, there are a couple of appeals filed, whether they were flawed or not. One was at least flawed, but made in '99, and in the 2002, 3 years hence, the appeals court said you still have the right to appeal. In other words, it wasn't 14 days. We're 3 years later, and because no decision had been rendered, the appeal time clock hadn't started. The way I read that,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, that preserves the right. I was just wondering, and I know that the streamlining is not to be repetitive with enabling law, but at least 12.2.b, I wish there was a place to put it in there to notify the citizenry. I'll assume John Hallen knows the law and the planning department knows the law, but they may not. And I don't know. I mean, if it is just totally redundant, certainly Elio doesn't trash section 7 of 40A. It simply says there's a process,
Right.
or at least the way I read it.
Would it be helpful? I know we've talked about this with the committee on a couple of other things where we've taken out some things from the statute. And we thought, you know, it might be useful if somebody had the time to do it, is to create, and maybe when you get a new planning director, they might be interested in doing this, is to create kind of a citizen's booklet, a handbook on what do you do when, you know, where do I go for
I'd be
this?
very happy with that.
Yeah.
Dave McMorris had that idea, or at least the germ of that idea a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Dave? Which is how to file an appeal.
Yeah, we drafted a little thing to hand
Never
out.
went anywhere, but it would be valuable.
Yeah.
I just don't want us or the town or any town agency to be seen as trying to pull a fast one on people or slip things by. That's all.
Yeah.
Everybody has the right to appeal. They don't have the right to win the appeal.
Right, and I think we do say that up above, and where is it? I don't have control of the document, but is it just, yeah, okay. Any person aggrieved by the building inspector's denial of their written enforcement request or by the issuance of building permit or occupancy permit in violation of the zoning bylaw, et cetera, may appeal to the zoning board of appeals within 30 days of the action or order complained of in accordance with the procedures set out in the statute. So it kind of is a shortcut explanation. I don't, you know, we can't repeat the entire statute.
Oh,
in
of
our
course not.
bylaw, you know, and it doesn't make sense to do that. And to paraphrase it, I think becomes more difficult and sometimes more misleading.
Okay,
to-
I would only say that in looking at 48, if you look at section 8, they talk about obtaining a permit or enforcement action aggrieved by an order or decision. One could argue that non-action is a decision made by a
That's
building
what
inspector.
Elio said, the non-action is not a decision or order that's appeal, that it's an
That's-
appeal.
Okay.
That's what Helio decided. That's,
Yeah.
Okay,
and
Yeah.
it's, and what the judge said before, because the 14-day thing is directory and not mandatory, it doesn't, the non-action doesn't become a decision.
yeah, and we had that problem up in whatever it was, Cemetery Road, where the neighbor, they were using his driveway as access, didn't act within 30 days because no decision had been rendered, and or whatever it was. But at any rate, we maybe his lawyer, maybe we all misinterpreted when the time clock starts and so on and so forth. He was told that he missed the window. I don't
Oh,
think the window had ever opened.
Well, it either never opened, or what Elio talks about is that you can have other types of notice of a building permit being issued, other than getting a piece of paper that says this building permit's been issued. You can have forms of constructive notice or other types of actual notice that could trigger your 30 days.
Well,
So
yeah, but if you've taken the trouble to write the building inspector, I do think you deserve a written response, even if it's go away and don't bother me.
I agree, but, and again, I mean, we should maybe we all have a sit down with John Hallen to make sure he's doing that. As the judge
Well,
said.
maybe
there's probably-
the solution is what Judge Cutler has recommended, and that is, but if we'd have to hold ourselves to it, and that is do a handbook. What is an appeal? When do you appeal? How do you appeal? So on and so forth, a primer. So that it isn't, I talk to people who say, have you gotten a lawyer? No, I haven't gotten a lawyer in this situation.
problem, yeah, yeah.
You know, please get a lawyer. That's step one. But I think it would be helpful, really helpful. I just don't want to get caught in some sort of legal, dancing in the head of a pin about, well, there was no written decision, but there sort of was. Or there was a written notice, but nobody knew it. I mean, I don't know. Judge Cutler, do you think a primer of this sort would address my concerns?
Well, it won't address the concern of, how long do you have to keep pestering for something if you don't get a response? That's, again, that's a personnel matter, and that's, that may be something as simple as sitting down with the building inspector and saying, how are we going to address this? What makes sense from a practical perspective, given your workload and your staffing? How can we make sure that you respond in a timely fashion to these people? And what are the things that are getting in the way? And you may be able to work out a very practical solution to it.
Yeah, and if it were a situation where John said the town planner, Lauren Lind, has resigned, and so I've got a smaller staff and I can't do all this 14-day stuff. But if the primer said, fine, if you have a legitimate reason for taking longer, take longer. Maybe he would be, maybe everybody
He might
would
also have a form, he might also think of maybe having a form letter that is a reply that says, I've received your letter, and maybe there's even a check off of the responses. I will need more information from you on the details of this, or I'm looking into it. And thank you for your request, or something like that, so someone knows it didn't go into a black hole. But that's an administrative thing.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems in the Elio thing and things. It was the appeal was too broad. It just said basically I don't like the building.
Right, and unfortunately, I think that's a lot of things that happen.
I just
Right.
don't like it.
Right. That looks like a bad thing to me. Could you tell them to stop, and so a building inspector may say, oh, I can't,
Don't bother me.
right.
Yeah, okay. All right, I will concede about, well, I don't only the vote of one, but I had a big objection at noontime. I'd be happy with contributing to a primer and walking it around to John and anybody else who's involved, planning board for sure, to see if we could keep it to a few, just a couple of pages and make sure that, written note, or, some sort of notice is available to people.
Right, right.
I
And
can't
it's-
force people to read an email, but
I was going to say a citizen's guide. A citizen's guide could also be posted on the website as well.
Yeah.
When they're looking up, zoning things, because it's my understanding, I mean, the building inspector does not report to the zoning board, correct? I mean, it's a town
Correct.
hall employee.
No.
Yeah. So
He reports to Chris Senior.
yes, exactly. So I think, there's sometimes where there could be disagreements of how the flow works in the office. So I
Well-
think to have that posted with some guide would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the way of people's workloads and procedures, process in the town hall, but so I certainly wouldn't mind a more liberal, as needed, trigger on terms of how long you have to file an appeal or how long the inspector has to make a decision. But I'm sensing flexibility here.
Yeah, you're gonna have me bring back an idea I had before.
Oh my God, from 2005. Listen, we've got to.
No, not from this, from the working group. Originally, when I was working on the bylaw, I wanted to have an additional chart, like the table of uses, a chart on timelines that in one page would spell out all these timelines for applications and appeals. And as long as it's accurate,
Yeah, but I'm
follows
also
the-
getting that some of these timelines are flexible depending on circumstance, workloads.
you can-
Well, this one in particular, I think a lot of the others are pretty strict. Like, if the boards don't,
Right,
Make
right. The
it-
board has to act.
it's constructively approved,
Yeah, we don't have that wiggle room.
Right, exactly.
But anyway, maybe we could do this as a little mini project and circulate it to everybody listening in and a few other involved people. Concom, I'd certainly like to get their understanding.
I think it'll be helpful because the things that's not just for, when this bylaw hopefully gets passed, it's not just for this board and this building inspector, it's for future boards and future building inspectors as well.
Yeah,
Because you don't know what different personalities you have in the future.
exactly. Well, okay, I will withdraw my concerns and I will also promise just offline, it's not a vote, but promise offline to help create a document that we all think works for everybody. Whatever the hell that means, but I mean, Anyway, and Charlie, you had a concern about the responsibilities of this board, the zoning board, when special permits are being issued, particularly for residences.
Section 312.5 says that the zoning bylaw says the zoning board of appeals has to, and only if it makes findings set forth in paragraph A of this section. Then you
It's
read
12.4 of the old. I don't know what the new is, but oh, here it is. Okay.
Schedule A includes measures to ensure that there will be no excess noise, vibration, light, dust, smoke. These things we are not responsible for. And so to add this to our decision, we'd have to add this to our hearing and the color of the house and all sorts of things, which the planning board has some authority over, but the zoning board doesn't.
No, this is, if you go up just a little bit to the beginning of this paragraph, Tom. Okay, so when you have zoning board of appeals, you have to make the findings set forth in paragraph A. Our paragraph A said you must make written findings that the proposed use or construction complies with the specific requirements of this zoning bylaw governing the subject special permit. So if there are particular provisions, let's say it's a special permit for, I'm not sure exactly what.
Yeah, it could be wetlands or something.
Yeah, or, it's some, in the wetlands protection district or something, and that says you have to make certain findings. Well, then you have to make certain findings. This just says the same thing. And that satisfactory provisions are made. Let's see. So you have to find that, and that satisfactory provisions, next page. I think.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna run away for a second, but
Just put on page 3,
okay.
that's it.
Have been made to prevent undue adverse effects on adjoining properties or properties in the same zoning district after considering the following factors. Now, if some of these things are unrelated to the special permit, if it has to do with some fill, well, there's not going to be ingress, egress issues. You just disregard it. Nothing says you have to make a finding about each of these, but these are the kinds of things that you look at to determine whether there are adverse effects that are being prevented, whether there are undue adverse effects. And so you're just looking at, okay, let's just make sure nothing here is going to create noise or vibration. It also gives the board an opportunity, if it is concerned about a particular project and one of these things is not satisfactory, gives you an opportunity to put conditions on the permit relative to these things. But again, these are factors to consider. They're not totally limiting. They're not requiring that you find every single one of these things is fine. I think you have to
recording in progress.
You're just taking into account, how is this project going to affect the neighboring properties?
And Charlie, just most of what's in here is already in the existing 12.4.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah. But that's not, but Charlie's point is that it may have been in there for 40 years, but we don't deal with vibration or smoke typically.
You
or-
might. There
Okay,
could be a
okay.
project that creates some, this horrible noise that's going to affect the neighbor. And there's nothing else in the bylaw that talks about what a noise level is. So you're saying, hey, there's no measures here to prevent this excessive noise. We're going to require a condition, or we're going to deny the permit because it has adverse effects on the adjoining properties. So this gives you some meat, if you will. It's not enough when you grant a special permit to say, and we find that there are no adverse effects on the adjoining properties. You have to make findings in your decision, factual findings about what the effects are or not, what the mitigating measures are or not. So this just gives you an outline.
If it's relevant.
If it's relevant, right? Yeah, there may not be refuse collection involved. And then you just cross it out.
The one area that we have dealt with is in 3, light spillage has been a concern in a little town like this. But that's fine, because it doesn't say what light or what spillage or.
Well,
how
it just
tall
can't be
or-
observable on the lot line, at the
Yeah,
lot line.
exactly.
When we had the Hellenic Church project,
Yeah.
a lot of these things were implicated: screening, the refuse, the light, all that stuff. And it's good to have it set out that we do have jurisdiction over those sorts of things,
Even if we don't wish to act, or
even if they don't apply in a particular case.
Charlie, would you be okay on that score or not?
Oh, frankly, I'd be delighted to comment on the color and
No. Please, no color.
but as far as I read it, this gives you authority to move into those areas.
Well, to consider whether there are undue impacts from these negative impacts because of these factors.
Yeah,
So you're looking, for example, at the character of the screening and buffers. So you're not necessarily worrying about the color of the fence, but you're wanting to make sure that whether it's a fence or it's bushes or whatever they're proposing to put up is going to protect the adjoining properties from adverse impact.
So they don't, we can tell them they can't put up a crappy link fence next to a house.
Exactly.
Well, if you extend this a little bit, it'll certainly have a negative effect if you can no longer see the ocean. And views are specifically, the court has decided.
Well, exactly. So what if the screening and buffers that are being proposed by the applicant are so dense that it affects another neighbor's view? Well, you may say, well, no, that's got to be reduced in height. You're not protecting someone on the other side of the buffer. You're interfering with someone behind you. So again, these are factors. We're not saying how they should be, but these are things that the board takes a look at when it's making its decision.
I can think of two examples here. One, we have a 6-foot tall fence limit, but we have no limit on dense privet hedges or other kinds of screening. And I know there was a case on Deep Run where people put up some evergreens, fully mature evergreens that line the lot line. And we didn't have any way of saying, no, listen, this is really, I mean, it shaded the neighbor. And I could see getting behind screening and buffers in a way that maybe we haven't done much of. We don't have too many problems. I mean, really.
Right.
It's pretty hard to legislate in advance. I wouldn't want to say, look, at a privet hedge can't be more than 8 feet tall
Well,
or 10
exactly.
feet tall.
That's the problem, right? Yeah.
And how far back is it set is, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know,
Wouldn't-
Charlie, I think maybe we could pay a little more attention to this in certain circumstances, particularly as a partner or as an interested party in things like large home reviews. But most of those don't require special permits anyway. But anyway, are we okay with this or not, Charlie? I don't want to sort of.
Again, I tried not to take out of the bylaw things that I didn't see a problem with. So if you do see a problem with this and you don't want to consider these factors, then, you ought to know about that.
Charlie, can you think of an example or two that we've had in the last couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, where we should have applied these more rigorously or?
Not immediately, no.
Yeah, I'm not really, I mean, there's no legislating taste, but I mean, most of this, we just don't get into landscaping though, I must say.
Neither does the planning board.
Yeah,
I mean, the point is that this is in our existing bylaw. We both boards operate under the same state law and the same bylaw, so it has to have the same criteria. Whether we apply it in every case the same way is what makes the difference between the two boards.
Yeah,
we don't have overlapping special permit jurisdiction. You have some areas and we have others.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of examples other than light, sometimes noise concerns, smoke and vibration usually is construction related, but I don't know. It isn't that I don't think these are important. I'm just trying to think of some examples where we really had to come down on this other than light. This doesn't even deal with view, of course. Although sunlight and shading has been a concern of ours at times. I would say let's go with it, but think about it. Tom, maybe if there are examples that pop up between now and fall, there may be a little tweak session a year from now or something.
Well, perhaps, yeah.
I don't see anything sitting here tonight, but that's just a party of one.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't think there's different special permit standards for the two boards that we
No.
operate. So
Okay, well, you guys,
Anyway, I just want to be conscious
All right.
of, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to make it over to town to the.
well, no, let's move on. I mean, Charlie, are you okay approving this? I mean, it is a carbon copy of what's in the bylaw now, and maybe it's the application more than the wording. I don't know. Are you okay, Charlie?
I'm okay. I'm just worried that there's a number of these things that keep coming up, and have we really had time to determine them all? I'm not sure. I doubt it.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody want to make a motion on this one?
I'll move we accept Article 12 as proposed.
Okay. I'll second it. Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Others?
Pat Watkins.
Yeah,
Lee Darcey.
Okay, Charlie, you're okay?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so it's 5-0-1. And I think we only have one more, don't we, Tom? Or am I wrong?
Yep, no, you're right. Just the height definition.
Tom, why don't you put that up and then explain to us why the changes or change has been recommended?
It's being done to be proactive. It's being done to close some loopholes and that have been done in measuring height both at the bottom of the structure and at the top. So the two significant changes here that with this definition of pre-construction grade, you'll start to measure height at 12, at least 12 equidistant measurements around the perimeter of the proposed foundation. You know, today we can get from an applicant anywhere from 2 to 3, 4, and we're not necessarily getting the accurate measurement of what the mean grade is at the bottom of the structure. And then the change for the top is that for all roof styles, the top will mean the top. And that means with respect to a sloped roof, rather than being measured to the midpoint of the sloped roof, we will measure to the peak of the sloped roof. And that is to, again, be proactive as we continue to see larger and larger homes and other structures being built. It is intended to be logical. The top is the top, and it is intended to basically close a potential loophole that peak roofs are the only ones that get the advantage of, where you theoretically then could have a 40-foot high building when the town has clearly said that the height limit should be 35 feet. That's the logic behind it.
Okay, board, what comments would you like to make on this one?
I think this is a very necessary and well done change. I think the whole pre-construction grade, finished grade stuff has always been kind of iffy, especially with applicants who are kind of iffy. And it's very awkward to explain to someone that a 35-foot roof is not really a 35-foot roof. It's a 40-foot roof, you know, and it's still okay. My feeling has been and continues to be that anybody reading our bylaw should be able to understand what it means. And that if something says it's a 35-foot height, it should be a 35-foot height. So I'm very happy with this.
Other comments?
I'm not an architect, but I've heard that the change will make it more preferable, or you can have a bigger interior size in your house to have a flat roof. In other words, there'll be a move towards flat roofs rather than at the present time a gabled roof.
And my answer to that is that position has been expressed amongst the boards by one architect. Everybody else has been unanimous on this to this point. I don't think that Cohasset, the citizens of Cohasset, are suddenly going to throw out taste and start building flat roofs everywhere. And if you think about what is the average height of a story in a residential structure, 35 feet provides room for 3 stories and an attic. And I don't buy the argument that it's somehow not. Now, commercial buildings, it's been pointed out that they may have higher floors. The height of their stories may be higher. All right, and as we have said to everyone, when we get to the actual table of dimensions, we can visit the issue of whether we let taller buildings on 3A, whether we let taller buildings be built in the village, although the public sentiment that it's expressed on social media seems to be against that, and whether we would allow taller buildings to be built in the harbor. I don't think the sentiment is that either.
We
So I
actually
just-
have a height limit of 80 feet on the commercial strip up in the highway. Not that we've ever had anybody try that, but that's
No, but
embedded in the
one-
bylaws.
one concern was raised by the Affordable Housing Committee as we're looking forward towards the multifamily zoning we have to allow for the MBTA mandate, that we might want to go taller. Well, guess what? We can do that. But I mean, in the residential areas, it's clear to me, sitting on large home reviews, that people do not want to see 40-foot structures popping up all over. And the trend has certainly been toward larger and larger homes being proposed.
Yeah, now, Tom knows that I've got one objection. I certainly am in favor of the 35-foot height, in part because, at least if history is any guide, and it may not be, when our predecessor bylaw working group met, we looked at something like 88 or 90 building permits for residences from 2017 to 2020, when COVID hit. Only 2 out of 88 kind of went up as high as 40 feet. So it was not even from a commercial maximization standpoint or economic maximization standpoint, were people trying to go high or very high. So 35 feet doesn't bother me. Massing is the issue. What bothers me is taking the height of garages down 5 feet. You effectively eliminate much of a usable, above the car bay space. I don't mind taking houses down. There's plenty. 35 feet is, I agree with Tom entirely. Fine.
I disagree with that, as you know, because again, what are you measuring as a floor to put a car in? You're not measuring a 10-foot high, 12 feet. There's plenty of room within 15 feet to have that. And
But
as
a lot of people have a home office or good storage above.
well,
And Tom knows that some of this, if the affordable housing, accessory dwelling unit rather, bylaw ever gets revamped, there are people who would like to downsize, age in place, and live, kind of convert above a garage into a little 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, all they need.
right,
And that would be
again,
great for the town.
Right, and my answer to that again has been that right now we don't allow in-law apartments over garages. I don't know how much of the other uses over garages we allow, but we know that there's people have, man caves, home offices above garages all over the place. But if we allow accessory dwelling units to expand to garages, which I think there's a strong sentiment to doing that, we will have to adjust the height accordingly. And again, we're doing this in 2 pieces. It makes sense to the definition and the number we apply to the definition are 2 different things. And we're going to deal with
You're taking a simple approach, though. I think
It
that
is simple.
I don't like to see something. It's one thing to have a 40-foot high house that goes to 35, fine, and we don't anticipate changing that, at least for residences. It's another thing to take I'll say a 20-foot or an 18-foot tall garage, because it's usually about 18 feet, bring it down 3 to 5 feet, and then move it back up when we come into accessory dwelling units. Why not just leave it at the present? I don't think this is creating a problem in town.
No,
Would-
Woody,
I have to disagree with you that it's
I'm
creating
still
a problem
looking for the
because
15-foot height limit. I don't see it unless it's closer than 10 feet to the setback.
Well, a lot of garages, we allow driveways to be 5 feet from the setback. And in many, or if not most houses, do that because they don't want a driveway that goes down the front of their lawn, into the front door. And if you have a driveway setback 5 feet, it's not uncommon to have a garage that's also set back 5 or 10 feet, as long as it isn't too tall and doesn't mass. Because that's the practical, you drive down the driveway right into the garage.
I see what you're saying, but what I'm trying to look for, and I cannot find it in your bylaw, and maybe I'm missing it, and I hope someone can point it out to me, but when I look at your table of area regulations, we look at permitted accessory building, which would be a garage.
Yeah, I got it.
It says may be constructed no closer than 6 feet to the sidelines and or rear lines of its lot if less than 15 feet in height and 100 feet in setback. There's no column for height of a permitted accessory building.
But if you want to sort of, if you will, connect to a driveway that goes down the side of your yard, which is common, very common, it can't be more than 15 feet high. Right now,
Right.
it's 15 feet to the midpoint of a small structure's
Oh,
roof.
I see. You're talking about it's the small end of at the lower end of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
would-
Woody, it seems to me that what we're talking about, and what you're talking about, are existing garages in the setback. So if they're below 15 feet and they're, off the sideline 6 feet, they're conforming to our bylaw. And the problem would be if they wanted to add a second story for an in-law apartment, currently they'd have to get a variance, which they're not going to get. But if we do a new bylaw that for accessory dwelling units, we can always make that a special permit issue. So that if someone is going to wants to add a second story, they have to show that adding that second story is not going to adversely, impact the
I got
neighborhood.
it, but a
'cause
lot
it
of
is in
these
the setback.
garages exist today, and we're talking from an accessory dwelling unit standpoint, a renovation or a interior reconstruction. Yes, you could build it taller, I guess, but I'm thinking of a building that midpoint to the peak is at 15 feet. And it was built, I don't know, or I don't know.
well, let me ask you, my garage is attached to my house. If I subject to the 35-foot limit, not the 15.
That's correct, you are.
Okay, so
There is no, we don't differentiate between how tall a patio can be or a
Right.
deck or anything, I mean, it's all part of the dwelling.
I mean, for what you're talking about is holding this up for 6 months over a standalone garage for a use that right now isn't even allowed in our bylaw.
Well, it isn't just an accessory dwelling unit. I mean, I think that having a second floor, not a tall one, that may go all the way up to 20 feet if you take the definition, or 18, is not egregious. It's not adding to mass, the kind of massing that we see in large homes, like mansions. That's all. I mean, it's a concern of mine. But because
also-
I think we've swept in garages when we only intended really to deal with residences. Or
it can
I'll say
also,
detached garages.
it can also affect solar access and shadows as well. The higher the building is when it's closer to someone's lot line, particularly if
Yeah.
you have smaller lot sizes.
I'm just saying, leave it as it is today. Allow,
Well,
I
we're trying
don't want to
to,
change the definition of height. That's the problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
how you
that's-
measure it.
yeah, that's,
And part of this is to try to get, I mean, there's gonna be a lot on the plate in the fall, and we're trying to get the relatively simple stuff out of the way here is the foundation. And we can address, again, I separate the definition from the number, and we can address the number in the future, in the fall, when we deal with the table.
Okay, I'm just saying that 15 feet to the peak of a garage almost entirely eliminates use of the second floor.
I don't, for
It
storage,
does.
no, it doesn't. Well, again, the
It
car
wouldn't
bay,
meet building code. You
The
wouldn't be able
car-
to stand upright.
the car
Unless you-
bay is not going to be 12 feet high or 15 feet high. The car bay is 8 to 9 feet, maybe 10.
Or to 10 feet. I'm somewhere in there. Yes, I agree. And then you've got to have 7 feet of height to be able to inhabit that second floor, or even have it as an office and be habitable. And the math doesn't work. If you have a 9 foot, we'll split the difference, a 9 foot bay, and then you've got a half a foot of material infrastructure. And then you still are left with 5 feet, 5.5 feet of headroom. You can't inhabit it. It's not legal.
Right.
That's all. I mean,
But that's,
Do we
but that's what-
allow inhabited spaces over standalone garages? Yes or no? I didn't know whether we did. They're all over town. They may be illegal.
sure, they're all over town. They're not prohibited. Let me put it that way.
Well,
but what are you talking about? Something that's in the setback. So it can't be more than 15 feet high
Right.
at, at the ridge line. So let's say, it's 18 feet actual.
Well, it's 15 feet to the midpoint, Dave, right?
Okay, so the actual height's probably about 18.
Yeah, I would say because it's a smaller building, lower building.
But if you have a sloped roof, you're really not going to be able to use the top 3 feet of that anyway, because there's not going to be any width to it. So if you've got a 9-foot bay, you've got 9 feet above, probably 3 feet of which you can't use. So you're not going to be able to use it anyway. You're going to need to either get a variance or get a change in the zoning law to be able to use it at all for any kind of habitation. Just, it seems to me that that's the way the math is going to work on it.
Well,
And
I don't
again,
see it.
if you want to make the case for an 18-foot high garage, then make that case when we're dealing with the table. It's fixable, if that's
Yeah.
their concern. And
Okay.
especially if we go the direction of affordable accessory dwelling units, which my guess is, my betting is that we will go in that direction. We obviously have to change it from 15 feet. We're not going to make it 35 feet, but we're going to make it.
No.
something.
I mean, we're not too far apart here. I mean,
But again,
I'm not
this is-
talking about a 25 or 30 foot high garage. I'm talking about a little, 2-bay garage with a space above it. That maybe it's a home office, maybe it's a living quarters. I don't know. Well, we can revisit this, but I would just like to at least register my concern that this is sweeping in garages, detached garages, which were not the issue of massing that I at least see in the zoning board. And
And we're also talking about new construction. We're not talking about existing buildings.
Right. Right. All right.
And based on some of the garages I've seen in new construction, I would be concerned about the massing of garages. I see 3 and 4 car garages going up now. They're
I know,
massive.
but that's another bridge to cross because we don't have, and I'm not even sure. Well,
Well, again,
that's outside my pay grade, but we don't
No,
deal
And
with,
plus, those 3 and 4 car garages are conforming,
yeah.
they're,
If we start legislating those or regulating those, you're gonna reach a pinch point where people are gonna say enough already.
well, but you know from the working group that massing is on the agenda to be discussed.
Right, I think, well, anyway. Okay, I won't oppose this, but I'm opposed to it, but I'm not gonna stand in the way. I'll certainly vote affirmatively, if that's the wish of the board. Is there more, any more opinions, points of view?
Well, I think I'm comfortable with it.
Anybody else? Lee, Mike?
I'm
No,
comfortable with it.
good.
I couldn't understand you, but that's all right. Okay, well, why don't we, do we have a motion to endorse this article?
Motion to approve this article.
Somebody second it?
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Higginson abstain.
Lee Darsai.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Okay, well, it passes. 501. I probably should have abstained, but I don't care. It won't make any difference.
I
Okay, well, that
appreciate-
does it.
Yeah, I appreciate all your time.
And I appreciate your thoughtfulness in actually looking at this. Some people don't bother to look at it in detail, and it's very helpful to have more eyes on it. So thank you.
And along with that sentiment, I mean, there's two things. I would, again, I've said this to Woody, I would urge somebody on this committee to be a member of the bylaw committee just for the communication back and forth. But if not, you know, there will be a lot more on the plate for the fall, and I'm looking for some ideas of how we can better get these to you sooner or during the course of the process so that your input can be received earlier on. You know, we're going to get in a similar schedule. It's going to be probably the end of September where we have to have text finalized for what we're going to be doing. And, you know, at our next bylaw committee meeting, which is the 19th, I'm going to, you know, have some thoughts on the outline for the going forward in the fall, what we'll be able to bite off, what we might not be able to bite off. But I'd like to make sure that you guys are involved sooner rather than later, so that we're not dealing with 11th hour commentary like this. Not that it wasn't helpful, and I'm not criticizing that, but it would be great if, you know, your committee was more involved with the bylaw committee, that's all.
It's also, though, hard to follow some of the changes without, and I know you said how difficult it is to have either a red line version or a before and after version, but without being able to quickly compare what's in, what's out, what's been
Yep.
moved, you really have to do an awful lot of parsing,
All right, well, we'll try to improve that, but
But
you know,
Tom, can you
Yeah.
can you distribute, when you draft something, can you distribute it for comment? I mean, I know you don't want to do that to the whole town, but to this-
No, I mean, that's part of the thing is, you know, obviously we can't operate in secret, but, you know, when our bylaw committees meetings are public, but nobody shows up, and we do forums, but, you know.
I mean, if you want,
Kicking off the developer community isn't my choice, but, you know. Yeah, I
Well,
can do that. I can do that. I mean, since I'm on the planning board and Clark's on the planning board, you know, we regularly report to the planning board. That's what I was thinking, a member of your committee on it. And on the working group, we had one, and I know why it's not at this point in time, but I just asked to reconsider that possibility. But if not, yes, we got to do some better communication with you. So that we're not dealing with you like, you know, late October for next.
I think if you could, you know, distribute drafts of stuff to us, I don't think we're going to nitpick, but you'll get our insight from the enforcement end of it.
You do nitpick. You're the nitpick board. You've always had.
Well, we nitpick in a positive way.
I know that. No, that's the nitpicking is a necessary thing. It's helpful. It's just better than we done a few weeks before, you know, where
Right.
we are tonight. So.
No, I understand that.
So, yeah, no, we'll keep an open line of communication, but again, reconsider joining the committee. I think that would be helpful as well. But we have two.
I think the board knows, but it may not, and audience, that there was some litigation, a court case on Dolan Lane that we prevailed in. I got the message over the weekend. Sandra, did that go out to the zoning board?
Yes, it was sent today in your packets email.
Oh, okay. So that's a bit of good news and one less worry to
Mhm.
have. So
Well, again,
Judge
appreciate.
Cutler, thank your colleagues for that one.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Caroline did a great job. She always does.
You did.
All right, we're off to see how delayed the select board is.
Tom, are you going there physically or by Zoom
I
land?
don't, I don't know that I want to rush up there at this point. I think I'm going to stay.
Okay.
I'm comfortable. I got my slippers on already. you know.
Oh, come on.
I'd like to finish some dinner. I need to eat.
Yeah.
No, I think I don't know what, I looked on my phone. I don't know where they are, but I think I'll stay here, Dave. If you want to go up there, that's fine, but.
Yeah. I'll go up there.
All right, I
Okay.
again appreciate your help and everything,
That's
and
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Conclude the meeting.
Send
So
you an
I would
email
make a
after this.
motion to close this hearing of March 28th, zoning board of appeals.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Earl Higginson, aye.
Lee Darst, aye.
Matt Watkins, I.
Okay, was that it? I wasn't doing a head count, but
Mhm.
That's it.
all right, we're over.
Thank
We're
you.
done.
Good night,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Good night,
And
all.
You've obviously